SEO, or search engine optimization, is something that's been pushed by a lot of content gurus on YouTube over the past decade. But is it really that important for YouTube, and does it actually create as much of an impact as a lot of creators believe it does? Well, in today's video, we're going to be talking about SEO quite a bit, and I'm going to be talking about specifically why I think that it's a little bit overrated and give you some of my reasons why. I'm also going to be talking about some of the things that I think you should focus on over SEO specifically. But for those of you who are new here, my name is Kaylee and I'm a beauty and fashion photographer based near Sydney, Australia. But I'm also a travel content creator, and I started this channel a few years ago to talk about all things business, social media, content creation, and freelancing. And as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about SEO today and why I think it's overrated on YouTube. So to start off with, I'm going to give a little bit of a background on my YouTube channels. So I currently have 3 YouTube channels. One of them is my original channel, which I started in 2014, which is primarily for photography and retouching. Then I started my next YouTube channel with my partner Dan, and we started that back in 2016, 2017, I believe, and that is primarily for travel content creation. And then, as I mentioned, I started this channel a couple of years ago. So I have quite a bit of experience on how I feel SEO actually works on YouTube and whether I think it works well or not. I have many different opinions about this and thoughts about it, which is what we're going to be discussing today. And specifically, I'm going to be directing a lot of the attention back to my original channel, which I started 10 years ago. That is my photography and retouching channel. And I have been growing that channel now for a decade, and I have seen the first-hand effects of what SEO has been able to do and what it's unfortunately not able to do. So I'm specifically going to be talking about this channel and focusing on that because I feel this is where I've had the most issues with SEO and in growing my channel. And for those of you as well who don't really know what search engine optimization is, it essentially means trying to make your videos and content on YouTube as search friendly as possible, or essentially as findable as possible. So people can search for video topics that you may have covered online and they can find your videos. That's essentially what SEO actually means. And it comes in different forms on YouTube. So SEO can be done through titles of videos, it can be done through the tags that you use, and it can also be tweaked through your description box as well, and the words, keywords that you're putting in there, along with the actual content that you're creating. So those kind of elements make up a lot of the SEO practices here on YouTube. Now, as I mentioned, this is something that's been talked about a lot over the last decade, and a lot of content creator gurus have really pushed this as being like king in terms of what you should focus on with your videos and in terms of posting to YouTube. And I really do have to disagree with this now, because I think over the last 10 years, I've definitely seen how SEO has impacted my videos in a good way, but also in a negative way. It's not SEO necessarily itself, but it's the way that the focus has been brought upon SEO. And there's many more things that you should be focusing on, I believe, on YouTube to really get your videos out there and to grow your audience. So when I started my first YouTube channel back in 2014, SEO again was just something that was talked about a lot, and it was in the coming years. So I really focused on that a lot with my first channel. I really pushed hard with SEO friendly content, so I stuck to a lot of tutorials, which was easy to do with photography and retouching because you can do kind of endless tutorials with that. But I was really limiting myself to very search friendly content. So anything that was a tutorial or that was easy to find, I thought I was doing the right thing in creating that kind of content. Then obviously making all of my titles search friendly as well. So I have a lot of how-to videos on that channel. I would say that like probably 50% of my content now is just how-to tutorials and probably has the words how-to in the title. So I do feel like I really focused on that a lot. My titles tended to be, I would say, a little bit boring after a long time because I was consistently thinking of search friendly. I want these keywords to be easily typed out so many people can really find my videos that way. I was also focusing, like I said, on my descriptions and my tags, always trying to make sure that everything was like perfect, that I was getting that 100 out of 100 score for SEO with TubeBuddy. And it's something that I really focused on for, I would say, the better part of 10 years. That was until I started this channel a few years ago, and I started to notice something a little bit different. I tended to feel a bit freer with experimenting on this channel because it was a smaller channel and it was different content to what I was posting on my main channel. So I felt like I had a bit more freedom with this particular YouTube channel. And that's when I started to experiment with the content a little bit more. I was experimenting with not posting as many SEO friendly titles or topics, or even being obsessed with getting that 100 out of 100 score with TubeBuddy for SEO. I really stopped doing that with this channel. And what actually came out of that was pretty crazy to me because my videos started actually getting recommended by YouTube a lot. One thing I never really found out how to do very well over the last 10 years or so on my other channel was to get my videos recommended. It didn't matter whether the content was good or whether it was bad. I was always focused on on SEO and never focused on really creating engaging titles or really looking at the thumbnails. I wasn't doing any of that really. It was kind of like a second thought that was done right at the last minute. And I really never understood why my videos weren't getting put onto browse features with YouTube. None of my videos really went viral. None of them really picked up a huge pace either at any point during that 10-year period. So I used to wonder, like, what am I doing wrong here? Why am I not getting that traction that I thought I would get by now? And of course that was due to the type of content I think that I was producing, just very safe educational tutorials, which quite often will do better on SEO, but it was because I wasn't also focusing on other things that I should have been focusing on over just the SEO element. So I feel now that I can relay this information pretty confidently in terms of what I was doing wrong, what you should really focus on instead of SEO all the time or in conjunction with. I'm not saying that SEO doesn't have its place in all this, and I definitely think it does, but I do think it's overrated. And now we're going to go through some of the things that I think you should be doing instead of just focusing on that specifically. So the first point is to focus on the visual element, aka thumbnails. So for a start, it's all well and good to do all of the best SEO practices. So to fill in all your tags, perfect description, perfect title, 100 score for SEO. So that's all well and good, but if your thumbnails don't look good, then people aren't going to click on them no matter how good your SEO is, and even if they have found your videos through search. So there definitely are some tips that I have along with creating thumbnails, but I do think that this is something that should be a huge emphasis for all smaller creators or aspiring creators on YouTube. Thumbnails are never really something I thought much about. As I mentioned before, it was really an afterthought, and up until recently I was posting thumbnails literally the night that I was uploading the video. Like 5 minutes beforehand I would create a thumbnail, and I feel like it would always be kind of like not very well thought through. The text wouldn't be visible, you know, there was always things wrong with it, or it didn't look engaging, it didn't look eye-catching. So I always think now that that is something I really would have paid a lot more attention to over the last decade. If I had my time again to do it, that is something that I would definitely focus on. And some of the things you can do to really create those better looking thumbnails is by using a platform like PicsArt. So for me, I like to use PicsArt for my thumbnails. It's a really easy site where you can go on, get free graphics and free templates for your YouTube thumbnails. They also have an AI background remover, so if you've got a distracting background, which often is the case for a lot of thumbnails and a lot of the ones that I have made in the past, you can easily remove that. So if you just want to cut yourself out and paste yourself onto the thumbnail with a different background, it's really easy to do that. And I would highly recommend, if you do have distracting backgrounds, make sure to get rid of them in a thumbnail, because that can also affect how text is seen on there as well. And speaking of text, make sure that it is visible and clear. You don't want anything to kind of like blend into the background or whatever image you've chosen for the underneath portion. You want to make sure that that text is really easily readable. And what I like to do with that as well is that I tend to zoom out to see how the thumbnail would look a lot smaller, because obviously thumbnails are displayed differently on phones, they're displayed differently on TVs, on desktop computers. So I always like to see kind of like a variation of how the thumbnails look. Also, I think it's important to create a recognizable style with thumbnails, and I think this is something that's only really being talked about recently, but I think it's actually a really important point to be able to create thumbnails that when people see your videos on the home feed or browse features, they can instantly recognize the thumbnail and know that it's from your channel. I think it's a really important thing that is being talked about a little bit more now, and I think it's something that's also often missed when people are creating their thumbnails. They kind of just make a different thumbnail every time, which, to be honest, I totally know how that feels because I've done that before too, and I haven't thought that much about my thumbnails in particular. So I think it's really interesting to start creating thumbnails that have a little bit more of that interesting element and something that can be recognizable as well. So you may have guessed what the next point is, and it is to create an engaging title. And we're going to forget all about SEO in this title for now. So forgetting about SEO when it comes to titles has actually already brought me so many more views than I ever had with good SEO titles. Again, having good SEO in a title is fine, but if it's not standing out enough from the rest of the videos, then it's likely that people are not going to click on it, especially if it's not engaging enough or it doesn't grab your attention. So I have a few tips here that I think are really important for titles in particular. And one of those points is to write out several titles for each video that you post and flip parts of the sentence around to see what's more engaging. Use caps on particular words to really emphasize certain parts of the sentence. It's really not until you start doing this and start writing out all your titles in different ways that you can actually notice how differently you react to certain titles and how interesting certain titles might appear. I've mentioned this before before on my channel, but I always like to get my husband's opinion when it comes to certain titles on my videos. I like to get his opinion because it's kind of like looking at it with fresh eyes and from a different perspective, which, because it's not going to be me clicking on the videos, I want to know how other people are reacting to that title as well. So it's really good to get a second opinion if you can. The next point would be to see what's worked for others. So this really just involves a little bit of research on the topic that you might be creating a video about. Maybe just do a little bit of research and see what has worked for other creators. I'm not saying to rip the exact same title, but look at what has worked for them and see if you could do something similar in a way that could really grab people's attention with your title. And then really think about what you would want to click on as well. I think it's really important to put yourself in your audience's shoes and to think about, you know, they've probably got like 20 videos on the homepage that they could potentially watch. What would make them watch your video? What would be that title that would grab their attention the most? Really just trying to put yourself in their shoes for a minute and think about what you would also want to click on. And then the third point that I'm going to talk about today is that you should focus on your content. And don't blame yourself if you feel your SEO isn't good enough. Focus on the content, the titles, the thumbnails, and then the views will come. SEO can and should be used in conjunction with the other points that I've talked about today, but it shouldn't be considered the most important point. As I mentioned, there's nothing wrong with adding SEO into your videos, and I think that everyone should do it as just a basic practice. I just don't think that it is that key to succeeding on YouTube like a lot of people do tend to think that it is. And I think it's pretty obvious from my channel that has been going for 10 years now what has worked and what hasn't. And unfortunately, SEO was one of those things that, yes, while it did get me views through search and a lot of my videos did grow over time with that, I found that often my videos were not being recommended enough by YouTube and I wasn't creating engaging enough content. I wasn't creating engaging enough titles and thumbnails to get people actually clicking on my videos. Much of my channel was really used as a how-to service and a lot of my videos were only found by SEO but no other means. So that is something that I would definitely recommend, is to use it but don't focus on it and really focus more on those other points that I've talked about today. And I've mentioned this before on my channel briefly before, but you can create help style videos which are more educational style videos which can also be very SEO friendly, and you can create these types of videos every now and then to, I guess, get that little bit more traction from YouTube search, which will help you kind of get an audience from that kind of side of YouTube. But as I said, it's not something to focus on, and the other points that I've talked about today are far more important. As a final side point, I would just say to try and improve your videos a little bit every time and experiment a little bit with your titles, your thumbnails. Every time you post a video to YouTube, do something a little bit differently. If something's not working, just try to do that little bit of improvement each time, because if you're really pushing for that, that is going to make more of an impact than doing the same thing every week and doing the same kind of SEO practices. You really want to be trying to push the boundaries a little bit more with your titles and thumbnails and your content in general. Well, thank you so much for watching this video today, and if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, make sure you do, because I'll be posting a lot more videos in future. Also, make sure to click the notification bell if you want to see my upcoming videos, because unfortunately YouTube does not recommend my videos to all of my subscribers. But let me know down in the comments section below if you've stopped using SEO as much, or if you're using it just as much as ever, or if you don't use it at all. I really want to hear your thoughts and opinions on this, and whether you feel like using it less has helped you kind of grow your channel a little bit more by focusing on some of those other aspects. Either way, I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Also, let me know what you want to see on my channel, because I'm always open to taking requests. But thank you so much as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.